our final session of today, before we break for dinner buffet and cocktails, our VC panel. And I'd like to welcome to the stage, you've heard Ming just now, Ming Yi from CSC Upshot Ventures. She's here from Silicon Valley. And let's say it is a long flight, I can tell you. And so we're really happy that she's here. Yuan Liu from ZhenFund, he's here from Beijing. And ZhenFund, as you may know, is a very prominent angel investor, but it's so large that it's really a VC fund. So ZhenFund, that's great, you're here. Chibo Tang from Alibaba Hong Kong Entrepreneurs Fund, also Gobi Ventures. Gobi seems to be a name that we're talking about a lot today. And then Duncan Chiu from Radiant Venture Capital. Where's Duncan? Okay, Duncan, thank you. He didn't have to travel so far. He's here from Hong Kong, but he's part of the whole Cyberport Investors Network. And then Furuzonfar Zehni from Fresco Capital. I think we've seen Fresco Capital really rise to the occasion here as an investor of Hong Kong startups. And then finally, actually, Robin Triangle from aSense. Robin is going to give us his perspective. He's not a VC, but he's observing it very closely because he's been tracking a lot of the VC funds and how they're doing. And then finally, Will K from Cooley here in Hong Kong. He's recently joined Cooley from another firm, and which we'll let Will tell about in a moment. So why don't we go down the line and each one of you tell a little bit about yourself. Will, why don't we start with you? And Will's going to help me moderate as well. Does everyone have a mic? So Will, let's start with you.
So Cooley is an international fund. We are headquartered in Silicon Valley. In short, we are your advisor and partner and friends for anything you need for legal services.
Hi, my name is Robin. I'm the founder of aSense. I've been in Asia on and off for over a decade and had the pleasure of working with or for a number of people on this in my previous role, where I raised capital for alternative funds. And now I'm looking into how we can mine the relationships that we all create both for deals and on the investor front in a much more effective way.
Hello, everyone. I'm an investor with Fresco Capital. We've been around in Hong Kong, Tokyo, and Silicon Valley for now 8 years. We have over 60 portfolio companies, I think, with a total value of over 1.5 billion. We like to invest early. We like to invest in education, healthcare, and work technology, and primarily B2B. Thank you.
Duncan from Radiant. We started the fund in 2014. So since then, we've been investing into 30 plus company in Hong Kong, Israel, and North America. And we just launched our second fund, which is a Hong Kong-based fund. We invest in Hong Kong company only. And we are one of the 6 funds being selected to be the ITVF program from the Hong Kong government. And, we invest in broadly deep tech company doing research-based service or smart devices, hardware, software, enterprise software, etc.
I'm Chibo. I was up here not too long ago. So I'm with Gobi Partners, also Alibaba Entrepreneurs Fund. I guess you just say a little bit more about the Ali Fund. 1 billion Hong Kong, investing in Hong Kong related companies, 20-something investments to date. Pickup is actually one of our portfolio companies, so hope everyone got a good look. We can help answer any questions. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Yuan, so with ZhenFund. ZhenFund is a Beijing-based angel investment firm founded by the end of 2011 together with Sequoia Capital. So it was initially co-founded by Sequoia China and Bob Xu Xiaoping, who was one of the Bob Xu and Victor Wang, who are 2 of the 3 co-founders of a company called New Oriental. So since before ZhenFund, there were personal angel investors. They did about 60 deals. Some of the well-known deals like Jumei, Light in the Box, Jiayuan, Xiaomi, etc. So since 2011, we were institutionalized as a fund. Today, there were 5 RMB funds and 5 US dollar funds, about $1 billion US dollars in AUM, and about 700 portfolio companies. We make about 100 deals, around 100 deals per year. So out of the 700, about 20 unicorns. And so very high velocity, small check size, about $1 to $2 million in US dollars as an initial check. Doing Series A's selectively, which we're also testing. So I joined the firm in 2014 myself. Before that, I was in the US in the fund of fund as well as a growth equity firm called Greenspring Associates.
And my name is Ming, and I run an early stage fund called Upshot Ventures in Palo Alto. I'm not going to be very popular here tonight because I actually don't invest in companies outside of the United States. I focus mostly in the Valley, but there is a linkage. My LPs are mostly from China. So I have Baidu as one of my LPs, for example, and I'm also connected to Cooley. I'm trying to make connections here. So Cooley is our fund formation attorney. And anyway, so the fund is $150 million. We focus on making early stage investment companies in the US, and I will raise your 20 unicorns with my 5.
Well, so maybe you'll change your opinion about investing here in the region after today and meeting some of these great startups that are here. Anyhow, do you think, are you finding, Anson brought up the question of talent, so let's talk a little bit about talent and technology. Are you finding that this is an issue for the startups that you're investing in, that they cannot get the talent that they need? Anyone along the line, doesn't matter.
I guess I'll take it because I've been hiring people for the past several months here in Hong Kong and elsewhere.
Okay.
I think it's very mixed. I think we all live in a reality in Hong Kong where rents are high and the cost of living is high. And we know from other places in the world that those are not exactly the most conducive things to people earning sweat equity and not having to pay their rent. So that naturally reduces the number of people that you can find generally. And then if we go specifically on the technology side, obviously there's only so many graduates that come with STEM, as they call it in the United States, types of degrees that are willing to take the kind of risk to work in a startup. But I think also putting a positive spin on it compared to 5 years ago, and a few of you mentioned that in the panels today, there are a lot more people who today see working at a startup or at a tech company in Hong Kong as a viable way of starting a career and building expertise, where I think, we've been coming to Hong Kong for over a decade, it was very hard to hire anybody without a big brand name even 5 years ago. So I'll stop there, but maybe that's helpful to the audience.
Okay.
I think I want to add on to that. When I walk around in Cyberport last year, 2-3 years ago, people run up to us and say, hey, they're looking for investments, want us to look at their deals. But I think now it's almost like 50-50. Now people will come up to us and say, not just looking for investment, say, you have good partner to introduce, or you have good founding team that you can actually introduce to us. But it depends on which industry they're working in. I think broadly, if you talk about fintech, yes, a lot of the company, in, let's say in Cyberport, a lot are related to financial industry. They face the problem of getting more talented or experienced founding team partners. One, people like aSense, they are also hiring people in the fintech area. Banks, financial institutes, everyone, even government, they're hiring people in the financial area, fintech area. So actually, in that area, we're having more startups at the same time. So yeah, in particular area, I think yes.
I'll champion from the Silicon Valley perspective. I think a lot of people think that talent is everywhere in the Valley. It's quite easy to find people. But in fact, I think that is still the biggest bottleneck for all the startups in the Valley. I have companies that send me email every day looking for certain talent groups, certain this and certain that. So I think that talent really is an issue that we all have to think about. And then I know one of the earlier panel talked about education. I also think about the mindset question is entrepreneurship. So I think that is something that we can all do together here to encourage more of that, and that would then inject into the talent pool.
I think the issue is people, not necessarily hire people, right? Because when you start a company, you are the employee, you are the only one you have, right? If you talk to Yuan will say, in angel investors, all they invest is people, but it's not the people you hire, it's the people, you and your partners. So initially, I think it's people who are you, who are your partners, right? And later on, then it became who you hire, right? But between you are the only employee to who you hire, the question became who are your partners.
Right. So we have a very founder-centric investment thesis since we're so early. There is like not that much data. Sometimes not even a product, not even a demo to look at. So it's just a PowerPoint. It's just a deck and just a founder profile that we're examining. And I sometimes joke, but which is true, that our job essentially was to talk to a stranger for one time or two and decide whether they want to give $1 million, right? So that's which is very strange thing to think about. So actually, speaking of that, to echo Will's point, so when we look at a founder, so if a founder has a very spectacular background and the co-founder is not that strong in our opinion, typically it's sometimes a negative sign that we think the founder is not strong enough to be persuasive enough to pitch someone to leave their original position, to give up large opportunity costs to pursue his own journey and his own dream, right? And also, we also always ask a question to the founder, who's the next person you need? What positions do you need to fill? Are in the shortage of talent? And if a founder says there is no shortage for talent, all the positions are filled for good now, that's a very negative sign, because any good company in any stage in their lifetime should be in short of good talent. And actually, that's one of our pitching angles. We pitch to great investors who is oversubscribed to let us in, so that we give a good endorsement, given that we're a popular fund name in China, so that it's easier for you to hire as a, say, Series A or angel stage company when you're pitching someone who has a very high salary in Toutiao or Baidu or Tencent, and to leave his post to join you. So that's actually one of our way to get in the company, that we help you hire and get good talent.
I think for so I guess we hear a lot about, okay, well, it's really hard to find good talent here in Hong Kong. I mean, the living standards are so high. I mean, generally it's very negative, right? I don't know. I think to put a more positive spin on it, I think that as Ming mentioned, talent is hard to come by everywhere, right? Where there's cities where there's a lot of startups, where there's a lot of supposed talent, the competition is also much higher, right? You're competing in those areas where there's a lot of startups. You're competing with maybe Google, right? You're competing with Microsoft, right? They have huge option packages. There's a lot of other options for good developers, good talent. Here in Hong Kong, where there's less startups, there's also less competition, right? And then in terms of, okay, well, if you look at the different sectors that Hong Kong is strong at, maybe fintech, maybe AI, maybe logistics. These are areas where traditional industries have been able to build long-standing competitive advantages here in Hong Kong, just because of where it is, its systems, and as these industries transform, as these people kind of think about, okay, well, how is innovation going to affect my business? They look to jump into startups, and that is a pool that all of us can kind of draw on. And as investors, if we identify the right team, there's a lot of opportunity there.
So since we have different perspectives here, geographic perspectives, I'm interested in the question of how Hong Kong is regarded as a startup hub and a gateway to mainland China. Does it work to be here in Hong Kong? Does it actually work? And since we have different geographic perspectives, I'd like to hear this. Is Hong Kong a good hub for a startup?
I think labeling Hong Kong as a good or bad is going to be quite difficult. I think it's very spectrum based. So each vertical is going to have a different perspective on how Hong Kong as a hub to China or the rest of Southeast Asia is. So I can give you one quick example. One of our portfolio companies out of the UK set up their office here in Hong Kong, even though their largest market is China. But Hong Kong was their kind of platform to getting into China. So they did that as step one, and then as the next step, Cooley is going to be their attorney to help set up onshore Ridgeview into China. And that makes a lot of sense because education is actually a very difficult market to penetrate directly as a foreign company into China. So being able to test your product, start figuring out your talent, and then start figuring out what your key core cities are going to be, you want to keep your costs as low as possible there. And so once you figure that out, then going into China makes sense. And Hong Kong is a great example and a great platform to do that cost effectively.
I think the answer is it depends. It depends on which industry you are looking at, right? If you want to do e-commerce, it's horrible. Hong Kong is a horrible place to start an e-commerce business. But if you want to do, let's say, fintech, right, then potentially it's good. If you want to do like life science, biotech, it's very good because you have the best university in the world, right? If you want to do chip design, right? It's potentially it is good. So it really depends on which industry you're looking at.
I think slowly we're building up the foundation to that. I mean, as the startup hub, we're not there yet. But with government spending a lot of in terms of money, capital, policy, and we're slowly seeing people. I mean, our best talent in town. Hey, they're proudly telling people that I'm starting a company. 10 years back, you don't see people doing that. They probably say I work in the bank and stuff. So, I mean, the trend is getting there, but I think the foundation is just starting. I mean, we just mentioned that Cyberport has 1,400 startups. That's over 15 years. I mean, that's only the number of startups you see in Israel every year. They have 1,000 startups every year in Israel, which is about the same population of Hong Kong. And, if you don't count the minority Arabs and stuff in Israel, they have a smaller population compared to Hong Kong, but they have 1,000 startups every year. So I think we're just starting to get there with all the foundations and stuff, and we need to keep the momentum going.
So, is there enough capital for startups? I mean, let's not just talk about Hong Kong, but let's talk about for Silicon Valley and also mainland China as well, Beijing as well. Is there enough capital to feed all these startups?
Yeah, actually there is. I was just doing some research around focuses on the venture capital dollars going into the U.S. market. And as it turned out, I think that because of the U.S., the market has been tons of bull market runs for decades already. And at the same time, a lot of companies like Google, Microsoft, Amazon has piles and piles of cash to invest. So investors, traditional investors like VCs and PE funds are investing. At the same time, the big companies like the Amazons, like companies are then piling cash into these companies. So that if you look at it, there is actually a lot of capital that's coming into this market. But the question really is, where is the market going, right? The market is actually, unfortunately, going toward the later stage side of things. So the valuation actually has been going up quite a bit, as close to like maybe 50% toward the later VC stages versus in the earlier stage. And this is for the US again. The valuation in the angel and the C stage has only climbed maybe 11%, but compared to later stage VCs, it's 50%. So that's where the dollars are coming in. So yes, there's enough money to invest, but the attention really is going to that later side of things rather than the earlier side. And it's good for funds like us where we focus on early stage because we can still get paid. We still pay less to enter, but then there's the financing gap and how do you grow the company. So the challenges over there as well.
But at the same time, I keep seeing these new micro funds being forming, and spin outs. So that's another trend that's happening. So maybe that's helping to fill the gap a little bit.
Yeah, the micro funds could definitely fill the gap, and they're definitely coming in at the earlier side of things because the check size has to be smaller by definition. But the question really still is that challenge because I'm seeing my companies going very quickly, C to A, no problem. You can get that jump. And then A to B, you can still get that round raised. But then the question is just, how these small funds, they can't keep supporting all the companies going to the later rounds.
So you could get stuck.
You could.
Okay.
So
But I won't get stuck.
Yeah, she will. Okay.
Rebecca, you that I'm going to help you
Yes.
moderate this. So
Yes.
I do have one question for each of them. Right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about deals.
Yeah.
So I want each of you, probably with yours on the inception, to talk about one deal that you are most proud of in your early investment.
Or the most challenging. I like that question, and I was actually, I like that question. So let's go.
It's like saying, "What is your favorite?" As a parent, who's your favorite child?
Oh, come on.
We like all our deals.
No, you can't say that.
equally.
You can't say that.
I can. I think it's. There's a lot of different. I think characteristics that go into a deal. I can tell you one of our latest deals that we're super excited about, and there's an added bonus. They're actually based out of Hong Kong, right? So the company's called Reap. I don't know. Anybody heard of them? Yes. There, 1, 2. So we have a few. One of the founders is over there, so you can go say hi. But
Hello over here on this side. I know you can't see us very well. You're welcome to come to more central.
but that was one of our latest deals. It was an early stage deal. Basically, one of their first institutional investors in, and typically earlier than we usually invest. But that was a case of great talent coming in and figuring out a market need with great background experience in that domain. And we really got excited about what they can do in a very short period of time. And therefore, we actually led their round. And it was here in Hong Kong. So for all the investors who say that Hong Kong, doesn't get enough deals, I think there's quite a bit picking up here.
Can I talk about two? Because commercially, this one I've been involved for a long time in China, and it's now one of the largest software company in China, 50,000 employees. But we started when they're like 100 people, investing, helping them, and I always want to bring this out because this is a great integration between mainland China and Hong Kong. So you won't be able to build something like this in Hong Kong. The whole industry doesn't have 50,000 people, working on software. So, but in the meantime, in management compliance, and listing in Hong Kong, there's something that we help, and actually is a good integration. It's called Chinasoft. And then recently, there's a company that we actually quite like. Financially, is just starting to pick up, but it's kind of commercial, socially interesting in the US that what they want to do is it's called open sponsorship. What they want to do is become the platform to help the 97% of the athletes, the sportsmen, that doesn't have any sponsor to get sponsored. So only 3% of the athletes they can get the sponsors. So they're building a platform and help all the B or up and coming sports stars to raise sponsorships.
So Duncan got 2, so I want 2 too. So on the Gobi side, we have a company called AirWallex, which is a cross-border payments company. We invested in the seed round, and then they subsequently got investment from Sequoia, Tencent, Hillhouse, DST. They just closed their Series C, so now they're officially a unicorn, Australia's fastest unicorn. So that's probably one of our better deals. And then on the Hong Kong side, there's a company called Sandbox VR. We also led the seed round. They're one of the very rare kind of consumer plays out of Hong Kong that I think is very interesting. Andreessen Horowitz led their Series A, and now they're in the US, building out location-based VR gaming experiences.
Not too new. I thought
that was an earlier one.
Right.
Yeah,
kidding,
forget about
because
that
I
one.
work on Too New's IPO.
Yeah.
So the deal I'm most personally excited about is called a V8. I don't think anyone has heard of it here. The company name is Youhua. So it's a short video aggregator platform in China. So we are the seed investor. We invested 14 months ago. In the seed round, we gave $1 million to the company. Now they just raised $50 million. It's not a unicorn yet. It's a semi-unicorn. But that's not the reason why I'm most excited about it, because I think that deal exemplifies several trends. The bifurcation of fundraising in like in the most let's say whether it's herd mentality or not, but the top notch deals, and the second tier deals. The second tier deals is getting like it's harder for them to raise money because the RMB market basically dried out in China, and every US dollar fund raised historically largest fund, as we see, right? We see news every day raising mega funds, and like Ming pointed out, they mostly go to later stage. So some of the deals, like Youhua, the founder is very high profile. He basically created 3 or 2 out of the 5 largest short video platforms in China before in his tenure. So fundraising was very fast. We did angel round, and then there was Sequoia, IDG, GSR, Capital Today, Gaorong, NetEase, and now Looping Capital. Like everyone coming within 13 months time. There is like 5 rounds. So there is like bifurcation of fundraising, and also that deal also exemplifies another trend that we identified, which is that for the founders, it's getting harder and harder for the college founders. Like we are angel investing in OFO as well, and unfortunately it didn't work out. But that was a college founder, and we think it's getting increasingly difficult for founders with less experience to do startups in China because it's getting so competitive. The entire ecosystem has matured. So like 1 decade ago, during the time, the era of BATs, like the sea turtles, as we call it, have great advantages come back from the valley. But now we think the advantage for them, for the Chinese in the valley, to come back to China to do their venture, it's actually diminishing because the local environment has prospered so much. So we are now like looking to find senior executives who will leave their original company to do startups. So Youhua the guy was a VP at Toutiao. So that's also like it exemplifies that trend. And also that short video platform, I don't think anyone here will enjoy. So basically it targets say the 4th, 5th tier cities resident in China who are underserved by the traditional or the incumbent players in short video. They have very little alternatives of killing their time consuming contents. So if you're interested, you feel free to download. But you never see the product on the Apple Store because iOS users take very small percentage in the user base. So they have 10 million users, more than 10 million users now. More than 1.5 million daily active users, yet none of us probably heard of it in the room because it targets an entirely different crowd. And that's also another trend that is one deal might exemplify is that the future giants might target different crowd than we used to see.
The rural areas, the tier 3 and 4 cities are, like Pinduoduo targeted that way. The social commerce startup. Well, it's not a startup anymore. It went public, but yeah, that whole trend I think is really interesting. And so this whole short video era has already led to a company that aggregates short video apps.
Oh no, sorry. So it's basically it is poised to be a competitor to the incumbent like Douyin and Kuaishou. So it's another short video aggregator, but it's organized in a different structure. It's like a combination between Tieba and TikTok. So you actually can select the topics, and so the content is structured differently, and also it's of different nature than what you see on TikTok. So on TikTok, typically most of the content is actually you see girls dance and everything is the front camera, but a very small percentage is the back camera. Back camera is actually you are observing the world. Front camera is showing yourself, right? So it's actually a different sort of content.
There's been some pushback from India over the popularity of this app.
In India?
Yeah.
Oh, it's you mean TikTok? Oh, right. Oh, I was talking about V8. Yeah, I just saw the news today that TikTok was taken off the shelf by Google, right? Yeah, it just came out like 2 hours ago. That was very. Yeah, you're probably checking your phone while you're moderating. I just saw it. Yeah, we were just discussing that how Chinese companies. We think the new Chinese mobile army is like the Spanish Armada back then. So there is a abundant supply of engineers, product managers and venture capitalists. So now the local market is so saturated they're going out to attack. Like it's like the new communism. They're going out to say Southeast Asia, Africa, even America to export their mobile products, and then there are like local regulatory issues to actually shut them down. And we see TikTok is one of the examples.
So Ming, you brought up the idea of the valuations increasing. I mean, how competitive is it among you VCs up here for the best deals? Do you compete with one another for the best deals? And How do you win
Of
that?
course
You
not.
work together. How many
We're
of you?
great
How many
buddies.
of you have co-invested with others on the panel? Okay, but yeah, on the panel. And you've co-invested with the others up here.
We did deals with Gobi before.
Okay, Ming, you're
Well, not here.
okay.
Because we invest in the U.S.
Okay, so Ming is going to
but-
do a
But,
pivot.
but we co-invest with other venture funds in the U.S. for
Right.
sure. For
Okay.
sure.
I think we work a lot together. I mean, we like co-investment with other funds, friendly parties like Chibo and stuff, getting other viewpoints from other investors. And that's the reason why I have to promote. We formed the Cyberport Investor Network here about 1.5 years ago. So we're actually linking up most of the active funds in Hong Kong. So if there's opportunities and co-investment opportunities, we can share with other funds.
Right. So, what technology are you excited about that you wish you could fund?
When you say wish you could fund, that means we can't fund right now. I think we can fund. We're pretty flexible with what we want to
Really?
fund.
But-
So
Get in as a can you get into this?
Yeah, we can,
Can
yeah.
you get in?
I think as an early stage investor, going back to competition, I don't think it's competitive as much as it is collaborative in early stage. So we definitely we have over 500 co-investors across the world. So we probably have co-invested into something, Ming. I will have to go back check. But in terms of technology that I'm excited about, I think a lot of, in healthcare specifically, continuous patient monitoring is something that I'd like to take a deeper dive into. And I think there's lots of verticals, like for example, glucose monitoring for diabetes. I think there's verticals that you can start going into that is huge. And so continuous patient monitoring is a technology that I'm excited about.
Would that be a Hong Kong based
We do global investments, so
global? You would do mainland China too?
yes, we have done
Yeah.
mainland China as well.
Okay. All right. Just interested because, it's a long runway on these biotech deals. Long runway.
We are long-term investors, right? So we're okay with that.
Okay. Duncan?
Since our new fund is actually Hong Kong based, so we look at a lot of the opportunities in Hong Kong. Just like the government, I think, separated into 4 categories, right? AI, smart city.
I want to hear what you.
I know, but I mean, I want to start that way because actually 2 is quite broad. AI and smart city in Hong Kong is very broad, and we get actually 2 vertical, fintech and biotech. So we're actually more interested in the 2 vertical. I mean, fintech related and biotech related, but we don't do actually pharma or really medical deal, medical equipment as well. So we do early diagnostic, medical management, that kind of application of software, enterprise software into bio and genome related analytic, that kind of area, and also fintech broadly.
So we're pretty broad, broadly TMT, broadly generally AI. At the end of the day, though, I mean, we're early stage investors, so we're just investing and looking for the best entrepreneurs in whatever
Yeah.
segment that they choose to play in. I mean, that's what we're interested in.
I see. But AI would be your answer if you needed to give one. Okay.
How about blockchains?
Yeah.
Bitcoins. Nobody this is like the 2 buzzwords last year, right?
No, nobody likes
Nobody
it.
talk about it anymore.
We did a lot, and I think we kind of got punished reputationally for that. We're very flexible, and if we're excited about technology, we likely fund it. We've done crazy stuff. We've done not supersonic, but like Hyperloop, and we've done Blue Sea, which is like a floating island in the public sea for entrepreneurs to do a co-working space. We've done gene sequencing, seeds like CRISPR. I can't think. We've done rocket launching deals. So I don't know what technology we want to do, but we haven't. Maybe cryonism, something related to longevity. Like I was reaching out to a few professors, but they never responded in that. I'm always thinking of freezing myself after I'm dead or before I'm dead. I'm dying. Other than that, we've done cancer drug discovery platforms, empowering, leveraging AI platforms. So typically, when we see something that we think is interesting, given that we're so early, opportunity cost is not that high, we would back it.
I think for us, we have the luxury of sitting in Silicon Valley, and we have the luxury of seeing companies at the earliest stage. So it's not a lot that we wanted to get in that we really cannot get in, because there's also not a lot of competition at that stage. Our fund, I think that I didn't get to answer one of the earlier questions. You know, what's one company right now on my mind that we're likely most proud of? It's a company called Boom, B-O-O-M, and it makes supersonic jets. So supersonic technology has actually been around for decades. However, what the company is able to do really is to take the same old technology, however, innovate on the material, innovate on the software integration, innovate on all the other connecting points, such that the engine and the airplane can be built for today's travel. And we invested in the company when it was just at the YC stage, even before it got into YC. Then we follow it in the Series A. And then subsequent to that, we then help them to come to Asia. We connect them to a couple of partners here, and then C-Trip that invested into the company because it views the jet as a next generation travel, right? So C-Trip came in, and then Japan Airline also, after a lengthy diligence process, also decided to come in and then in fact place order for the airplane. So, and then most recently, we just closed the latest round with Emerson Collective, and that took the company valuation to $850 million. So we invested at $50 million cap, and now it's $850 million. And I think this could be a company that could change the life for all of us sitting in this room. I think that it would redefine the next generation travel. It redefines how AI is defined. It will redefine how you go from end to end, you know, how you do your day-to-day life. So this is a company that we're proud of. And I think that it shows like in the Valley, there's a lot of interesting points that we can kind of pick up.
Right, so that's Valley, that's deep tech.
Yeah.
Right, so do you get deep tech here in Hong Kong?
I was really glad we all skipped the blockchain question.
That's okay, you want to answer that? Will and I are sharing, so. All right, Will, I have a question for you. What about this new exchange in Shanghai as a listings venue, and how's that going to impact the Hong Kong Stock Exchange?
Well, I'm biased. I do IPOs in the US and Hong Kong, but I don't do PRC IPOs, so I'm biased. So with that disclosure, I don't think it will work. So you look at because. You look at the overall stock market, right? You look at China's stock market in the past, 30 years, right? It's always the true couple of years is pretty much the worst capital market in the entire world, right? Couple of reasons, right? One is to have a sort of a sophisticated, fully functioning capital market. There are some infrastructures. You need to have sophisticated investor base. You need to have free and sophisticated financial media. You need to have research analysts that actually follow the company closely. And you don't have this, right? Before you have this infrastructure, I don't know, to set up something and persuade some of the technology company to list there, will work. And on top of that, you need to have a currency that is really transferable, right? Otherwise, for the people here, if they have US dollar funds, you get an exit in China. What do you do about it? So before you have this, I don't think you could see a very meaningful exchange outside China, and that's why I'm still practicing US law in Hong Kong.
When I was talking to some of these companies that chose to list in Hong Kong rather than New York, they said it's because mainly there's a bigger investor following here for their kind of business, that it's better understood here in Hong Kong than it would be in New York. They're more familiar with the business model, which was interesting to me.
I think CDR might be more interesting. CDR, which is basically stands for China Deposit Shares, right? So if you list it like Alibaba or Tencent or Xiaomi, the listing in US or Hong Kong, then you could offer CGR in China. I think that's actually sort of an interesting middle step.
Right. So I just want to touch on one other question about intellectual property protection. Is this was always the big issue of going into China? You know, your technology is going to be ripped off, your ideas are going to be ripped off. Are you still facing that kind of issue? I've heard that things are much better than they were in the past. What are your opinions? Anyone along the line that has experience with it?
I think as half insider, because I have a role that I help the Hangqin government in Hong Kong. So the part of the Greater Bay Initiative, we've been drafting a lot of suggestion to the government. So I think IP is the number one thing that I know we have to tackle through Greater Bay. Of course, legally it's difficult. We have one country, two system and stuff. But slowly, I think it's one of the top agenda that through GBA we hope to minimize the disadvantage in China, and definitely I hope that the central government understand that the IP protection is top priority, and I guess it's moving there. But I think it will be in the next 1-2 years we see some policy changes that regionally in GBA taking some steps towards better protection.
Okay. Well, just to end this, let's each one of you let's go down the line and give us a tech phrase, something that's on your mind. A tech phrase doesn't have to be just a word, doesn't have to be "have a good day" or anything like that. But okay, Ming, you want to start with you? A tech phrase that's on your mind. Okay, I'm going to say tech titans, but that's my own. Okay, go ahead. I said tech titans. Tech titans.
I would say get off your mobile devices.
Okay, all right. And do what?
That's the question.
Oh, okay. That's the we need a solution to that. All right.
I would say billions, not millions.
Okay. Good.
Hong Kong unicorns.
Okay. Good.
Silicon Dragon rocks. Something like that.
Oh, okay. All right.
Cross-border teams.
Cross-border teams. That's Fresco's doing that. Yep.
Radical transparency.
Oh, wow. That's what you're aiming for, isn't it?
The best is yet to come.
Oh, you know what? That's really interesting because I remember interviewing Sunny Wu from GSR Ventures, and every time I interviewed that VC, he would always say, the best is yet to come. So, I think we're still waiting for that. But, anyhow, I hope you had a nice time here today, learn something, have some takeaways that you can go away with and learn from all these great panelists here. So let's give them a round of applause. And I would like to say that our next event is going to be in Los Angeles. So if you're in Los Angeles this summer, escaping the heat and humidity here in Hong Kong, come join us July 24th and 25th in Los Angeles, where we're going to be talking about digital entertainment and mobility. So these are two really hot things in LA, and they're also linked to China. And then after that, we'll do New York. And actually, could you bring up our schedule for the year? Could you bring that up, the next slide? Okay. If you posted anything today, it's at Silicon Dragon. We're also on WeChat at Silicon Dragon. The next slide. Okay, there's our schedule for the rest of the year. So we hope that you'll join us, and thank you for your attention. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you on the trail. And now let's go.